On this day, 1966, in what's generally regarded as his finest prime performance, world heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali dismantles Cleveland Williams.
Williams down to the right. He's up at two, but he'll take a mandatory 8 count. A short joining right hook by Clay, and Cleveland Williams was down. He doesn't look hurt. He's taking the mandatory 8. We have a knockdown in round 2. Here comes the champion. Throws another right, misses the left. Throws the right. He's got Williams hurt in mid-ring. Clay with a left, a right, a left. Williams with his back to us is getting hit at will, a left, a right. Clay has him going down on his, sitting down above us. He gets up immediately. He'll take another mandatory 8. Clay threw both hands up in the air, signal of victory. But Kessler is giving the mandatory 8. Williams shakes his head. Williams has been hurt. We have 12 seconds left in the round. A left misses by Williams. Williams will survive the round. A right, a left by Clay, a left and a right. Williams flat on his back. But the bell will ring.
And we're back like we never left. Welcome to the 1-year anniversary episode of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast, which started on November 14th, 2023, with an episode which was a great idea for an episode that I revisited, but it didn't come off that well because I had no idea how to use the sound equipment, and it was what it sounded like. Sorry, but that's literally how the first 5 minutes of the episode came across. But welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast, and I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Thursday evening here with me in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Today is the 58th anniversary of what many experts, boxing experts, would consider to be the Mona Lisa, the most beautiful dismantling by one boxer of another boxer. Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks in 1988 was just a steamroll, just a pure devastation. George Foreman over Joe Frazier, the Sunshine Showdown, Kingston, Jamaica, January 22nd, 1973. That was axe and smash demolition. Sonny Liston's 2 first-round knockouts of a terrific Floyd Patterson. Guy never had a chance. That was closer to Tyson versus Spinks. But on this day, 1966, the man generally regarded to be the greatest heavyweight who ever lived. And most people would say Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest fighter who ever lived. But Muhammad Ali generally he's usually going to be in the top 3 greatest fighters. Even those who say, well, Joe Louis, better heavyweight, Tyson Fury probably beats him because he's so much bigger. You get into those kinds of side arguments. But nobody denies that Ali boxed differently. He had a different style. He had a lot of different things he could do in a fight. But that his basic default process, it brought a certain artistic quality, almost a transcendent beauty to a brutal fucking sport. This is not a fun sport. And Deontay Wilder, of all people, said this. You don't play boxing. This is not a fun sport. This isn't baseball. It's not even football. It's a brutal sport. But 58 years ago tonight, within the context of that brutal sport at the highest level, the world heavyweight champion, a world heavyweight championship fight in the Houston Astrodome. Nobody was banging on any trash cans that night, Houston Astros. The world heavyweight title was on the line. The 24-year-old champion Muhammad Ali against a guy who was past his best. He was still a contender, but he was not what he had been, Cleveland Williams. And it has been said that the finest Ali performance of his prime, in terms of his skills neutralizing a fellow all-timer, it's when he took the title from Liston and then either did or didn't knock him out in the first round of the return match. I guess it depends on which story you believe by who at what time. Because either Liston got squared up by a punch that nobody saw, which was a real punch, but it certainly didn't look like a loaded punch, and he was on the canvas legitimately for 25 seconds. Jersey Joe Walcott completely losing control of the ring, and Ali's running around. It's fucking unbelievable if you watch the footage. The only time there was ever a knockout without a count being administered or without the ref doing one of these when you have an unconscious fighter. But if Ali's best performance in terms of the technique and the ability to neutralize somebody that most people thought was going to kill him in Sonny Liston, that is a masterclass in boxing. But he didn't do in that fight what he did, for example, in what most people would consider to be his finest hour when he defeated Foreman in Zaire in 74. The kid in 64 circling and neutralizing the brutish Mike Tyson of his day and Sonny Liston didn't fight anything like that in 74 in Zaire. Ali's finest hour, Ali's best boxing performance, the best representation of the almost limitless skill that he possessed was 58 years ago tonight, the fight against Cleveland Williams. Now, you could make the argument that he should have been fighting somebody better than Cleveland Williams, but that's kind of neither here nor there. He had fought Patterson. He had the return fight, as we say, with Sonny. He beat a bruising Carl Mildenberger. Man, Mildenberger was tough. So he was out there. He was fighting. He fought Brian London. But there were not unlimited top contenders in that era. Joe Frazier had just won in the Olympics. Frazier was nowhere near to being ready. Ernie Terrell hadn't gotten there. Guys like Eddie Macon, well, Macon had already gotten smashed by Liston. He's not really a top. So he fought who they put in front of him. And the thing with Cleveland Williams, he was a very interesting looking guy. He was jacked and he hit hard and he could take a good shot. So from that perspective, you know what? Throw him in against the kid. We'll see what happens. He probably can't keep up with him, but maybe he squares him up early and we end up getting a good fight because it's always a chance. Even if somebody doesn't appear to have a shot, they land a big punch early. You never know what can happen. For this particular night and fight, the young champion, who really had only been tested in the Mildenberger fight since he had won the title. Mildenberger landed a couple of body shots that seemed to really bother him, but the fight still was not really what you would call competitive. And one of the rounds where Mildenberger really squared him up and landed the kind of body punch that a normal fighter is at least taking a knee. And Ali took body punches just about as well as he took headshots, which it wasn't really good for his long-term health. But in the world of boxing, it was great that he could just take these bombs and keep moving forward. And it was almost impossible to move him off his spot. He was like a much bigger guy. You look at George Foreman, even in the Holyfield fight. Holyfield has to load up and land to even move George a little bit. It was very difficult. When Ali was advancing, it was difficult to get him to move back. Ernie Shavers did it in 77. Ernie Shavers, maybe the hardest hitter in the history of boxing. The thing with Ali, though, among many that marked him as so unique, he didn't come across like the typical fighter who was looking to hurt his opponent. There were only a couple of times in his career where you really got the sense that he was almost looking forward to punishing his opponent. Ernie Terrell being one, because he felt, there's me screwing around before the fight and making jokes and calling this guy a name, and then Floyd Patterson is the rabbit, and this guy is the eraser, all of the different nicknames, the acorn, what he called Ernie Shavers. And usually it was funny, but sometimes people got aggravated. In the case of Ernie Terrell, it was that he refused to call him Ali. And Ali was angry, and he changed his fight plan. I'm just going to see how many punches I can land on this sucker. I don't even want to knock him out. I just want to keep him out there. I want to bust him up. I want to hurt him. He didn't say that, but that's how he fought. He fought angry. Usually he didn't fight angry. And you can see plenty of footage, and there's shorts and reels of various fights where he knows that the opponent is not defending, and he's calling for the ref to stop the fight. He did it in the Quarry fight, the second fight with Quarry. He did it in the Ron Lyle fight, and Lyle was dangerous. But his default setting was, I want to win the fight, as painlessly as possible. I don't want to send my opponent to the hospital. So for all the talking and the giggles that he would have with Howard Cosell when he'd be interviewed pre-fight and post-fight, and there really wasn't much back and forth. Cleveland Williams respected him. There was no animus between the two guys. But he had talked about this thing that he was working on called the Ali Shuffle. And he'd already shown that incredible speed where it wasn't just that he was quick in the ring, it was that he literally was dancing around the ring. He's up on his toes, moving. And forget heavyweight. There were very few fighters that ever did that before. There was the performative aspect, the showmanship, the ring generalship, which to this day, second to none. Nobody had more rounds they won in their career doing less and simply won because they looked good in the ring, doing whatever it was he was attempting to do. But he talked about this thing. I'm going to unveil the Ali Shuffle. It didn't really seem to have a purpose other than to show the blazing speed. He would say, no, it's a way that I use to range my opponent, to time my opponent. He had a bit with Howard Cosell that I posted on YouTube not that long ago where he talked about it. And sometimes the guy is dazzled by what you're doing and you come over the top and you smash him. But the first round of the Ali Williams fight, there's not that much going on. And Ali was not really known as a great defensive fighter because he ran around the ring with his hands down. And going back to when he was in the amateurs, everyone said the same thing. Well, the kid can't do that. Somebody's going to hit him and going to shut him up. Well, the closest he came to that happening was Henry Cooper in '63. That's the fight. That's how he got the fight with Liston. Well, listen, so I'm going to kill this kid. You really want me to fight him? I love Henry, but I could beat him. And Henry almost knocked him out of the ring. Oops. Big mistake, as Arnold Schwarzenegger says in Last Action Hero, big mistake. The first round of the Ali Williams fight is a masterclass in how to defend yourself without putting your hands up. He moves left, Williams follows. He circles back right, Williams follows. He's using the jab just to keep distance. He's doing that thing that Roberto Duran later did where he would just not really commit to the punch. But he was keeping range of his opponent so he could figure out, okay, I'm not throwing the right hand for real, but I know I can get it in now when I do. First round, very little happens. Second round, Ali comes out, and I think he decided, you know what? I'm going to spare Cleveland from a long, grueling evening. I'm just going to end the fight here. He already had enough information. By the end of the first round, can't keep up with me. I tasted some of his power. He got me in the side once. Not so bad. I can handle this guy. So second round, he stopped circling and he started doing what you would call walking him down. And he unveiled this Ali Shuffle, which basically was just this lightning fast movement of his feet before throwing combinations. Now you would think that it was just a waste of time. Just throw the combinations, champ. Well, that's what he wanted to do. The showmanship. I even have a shirt, an Ali Shuffle t-shirt. So 50-something years later, people are still making money off of his invention of the Ali Shuffle. And you could go on YouTube and you could see different fighters across time paying tribute to him, from Conor McGregor, Ray Leonard, Manny Pacquiao, a lot of all-timers doing their version of it. Even if it's not practical for almost anyone else. It looks good. It's fun. And paying tribute to him is something that a lot of boxers to this day, they like to do. You know, I wasn't even alive when he had his last fight. I wasn't born for another 20 years, but thanks to the miracle of technology, we can watch almost every one of his fights. That's really cool. Boom. So second round, he's circling, but he's not circling with intent to just outbox Williams. He's circling with intent to throw big shots. Now, he didn't really load up in a conventional way that much. He didn't throw right-hand leads that often. He waited for his openings. He was very good when it came to counterpunching, but he was not, strictly speaking, a counterpuncher. This was not Terrence Crawford. or Jimmy Young from the 70s, who was an extraordinary counterpuncher. But he was always looking for openings. And there's a moment where Cleveland is following him around the ring, and Cleveland commits to a shot, doesn't get there, and Ali lands just a very short. It was very similar, actually, to the punch that either did or didn't separate Sonny Liston from consciousness in the second fight. It's just a short, quick corkscrew of a punch, not a loaded punch. Ali didn't get his weight into it. He's circling, boom, goes like that. And Williams goes down. He doesn't just go down, he kind of almost tumbles on the ground. It's not a knockout punch. Cleveland was okay, but it's the kind of punch that did enough damage where he was not 100%. The announcer even says, I think it was Les Kiter. What a great boxing announcer Les Kiter was. Phenomenal. Williams jumps right back up. Looks like he's okay, wipes his nose. Did my nose get broken? I don't think his nose was broken. People didn't realize the fight as a competitive contest was already over. It was only a minute or so, or a minute and a half, 2 minutes into the second round. The fight was basically already over. It would have been better. It's not better for history, but it would have been better for Cleveland Williams if he had simply taken a 10 count from that little short corkscrew right hand that he got hit with. Because when he got up, he's moving, he's trying to load up on a left hook, but he's still not 100%. So the champ moves in, no more dancing, no more Ali shuffle, not right now. He sees a hurt fighter, he goes in, lands a left, and another short right hand, doesn't load up, and Williams goes down, just kind of lands on his bottom. And the announcer even says, the announcer's sitting right behind him. And he actually goes, he's sitting right in front of us, meaning Williams. Gets right up again. Now he almost looks like he's angry. As if said, geez, I'm not even warmed up yet. I've already been knocked down twice. What the fuck? That kid seemed like a nice guy. He's killing me. So he's up, again, very quickly, does not look hurt. He looks mad. There's no 3 knockdown rule. Very important to note. The rules across boxing were different. State, WBA, WBC, the alphabet soup. You never knew what the rules were going to be until they announced it. Well, this particular night, there's no 3 knockdown rule, and a fighter could be saved by the bell. And I don't mean the TV sitcom that we all loved growing up. Well, in my case, it was more than growing up. I was already in my late teens. Saved by the Bell. Slater. Zach Morris, right? Kelly Kapowski. So Williams gets up. He looks mad, but he's not all there. He's still rattled from those punches that caught him. So champ moves in, and he lands a combination that it's so perfect, it is art. And this is why when they say there is the artistic quality to Ali when he was younger, that he almost beautifully rendered his opponents incapacitated. As brutal as the sport is, there was something very almost pleasing to watch this incredible left, right combination. You can't do it better. And this was a guy who was known, he didn't throw punches the way everybody else threw punches. They said the same about George Foreman. George would be anywhere punch. You watch some of Foreman's early fights, you see good technique, you see the left hook, you see the straight right hand, but you also see that. You see that. Now, Ali threw a lot of punches, these downward darts. The jab sometimes was a slap, but sometimes was a striking blow. In this moment, there's none of that. Straight, boom. The right hand, I would say in the career, the single best punch he ever landed is a punch he landed on Carl Mildenberger. I guess that was that September of 65? Or was that 66? I always get confused as to whether the Mildenberger fight was in September of 65 or 66. I apologize in advance. But there's a moment in that fight where Ali is he's moving his feet, and Mildenberger, he doesn't quite charge at him. But Mildenberger moves too quickly forward. And Ali, something he didn't do that much, he fully commits to the shot, and he lands a right hand on Mildenberger that not only knocks him down, but he somersaults over on the canvas, and as he starts to get up, his body hops. It was like Joe Frazier, as Foreman was knocking him down for, I think, the 5th time, that Frazier on the way down actually hopped, like his body was reverberating from getting hit so hard. That's the single best punch I think Ali ever landed in his career, was a shot on Mildenberger, because Mildenberger was really tough. And he still got up. He continued, but that was perfect. The last shot on Cleveland Williams in the 3rd round, the 3rd knockdown, is close. He didn't load up the way that he did in the Mildenberger shot, but it's beautiful. It's textbook. And unlike the first 2 knockdowns, where Cleveland either landed and kind of spun around, or landed and had his gloves in a position where you knew, okay, he's going to get up. He's probably going to get right up, and that's what happened. This particular shot put him down, arms stretched over his head. And the Sports Illustrated photographer, Neil Leifer, Leifer, he's the guy who took maybe the most famous single sports photograph ever taken. He's the guy who took the shot of young Ali, who was 23, he had just turned 23, standing over Sonny Liston after he landed the Phantom Punch, the short chopping right, which is definitely a punch. It definitely spun Liston's head around. But in Ali's mind, he didn't hit this guy hard enough for him to go down like he's been shot. And in that moment where he's going like this and shouting at him, he supposedly said, "No one will believe this." Well, the shot that the young champ landed on Cleveland Williams, everyone saw it. And Cleveland Williams went down with his arms outstretched. But the announcer again points out, the bell will ring. Meaning, the fight's going to continue unless Cleveland Williams' corner says, hey, our man's had enough. What are we doing here? So as he's laying on the canvas, and he did start to move at a count of 4 or 5. And I don't know if Kessler was the referee, whether Kessler would have gotten to a 10. It's possible that Cleveland would have gotten. So that's the thing. Every ref has a different cadence. And this is where you get into long counts and all this kind of shit. With Wilder and Fury, there was controversy. But every ref has a different cadence. And Kessler had a longer cadence. It took longer for him to get to 10 than a lot of other referees. And some referees just do their own count back then. Others, they'll pick up the count from the timekeeper, and as soon as they get to the fighter, they're already counting at 4, for example. But the bell rang, and Cleveland Williams' corner came over and pretty much scooped him off the ground and stuck him on the stool. Now, again, the fight should have been stopped. Just because the rules say it can continue, there wasn't any reason for the fight to continue. But Cleveland was sent out in the 3rd round, and Ali again went back to the kind of showboating, showmanship aspect of it. He did the Ali shuffle a couple of more times. He knocked Williams down again. Eventually, Kessler stopped the fight. There wasn't any reason for it to continue. Williams had had enough. The champ had shown enough. And the beauty of this particular exhibition, the skill, the power, the speed, the grace, the movement. This was a Da Vinci performance. This was Ali's Mona Lisa, Ali's Sistine Chapel. Just as Mike Tyson's 93-second demolition of Michael Spinks was a thing of vicious brutality, but in its own way was just as compelling. You don't want to see heavyweight title fights that end up not really being competitive contests, but you make an exception for Tyson and Spinks because that was Mike's moment. That was Mike's moment where he appeared to be invincible. And the Ali that fought Cleveland Williams on November 14, 1966, would be the betting favorite against any prize fighter who ever lived. Doesn't mean he's going to win all the time. But from a historical perspective, when you look at the guys that he was able to beat, and then you say, okay, well, how would so-and-so do against so-and-so? It's just difficult to imagine that if you could reboot the Matrix and just have that particular 24-and-a-half-year-old Ali fighting anybody, name anybody, he's going to be the favorite. Ask yourself the question, how confident would you be in either of the Klitschko brothers beating 1973 George Foreman? Because the Klitschko brothers are certainly a lot bigger than 215-pound Ali. Way bigger, hit way harder. They're capable of squaring him up. I wouldn't really be that confident that either of the Klitschko brothers beats George Foreman more than half the time. Don't think that he does. I think 1988 Mike Tyson would be an underdog against both Klitschkos, especially Vladimir, but he could win. He certainly would be a live underdog. One of the great things about technology, though, is that we can revisit this fight whenever we want. And I remember as a much younger person, when ESPN would occasionally show great fights, I would look forward to seeing the occasional Ali fight. They didn't show that many. But I remember when they showed clips from the Cleveland Williams fight, and I was in awe. Now all we have to do is click, and we have commentary of people even such as Joe Rogan discussing the fight and saying, look at the movement here. He looks like Floyd Mayweather and he weighs 215. How is this even possible? Well, it was possible. He was a unicorn. He was an outlier in a sport filled with physical outliers. Look at guys like Manny Pacquiao, Ray Leonard, even Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr., winning multiple titles in different weight classes. Not supposed to be able to do that. Ray Leonard was brilliant from welterweight to light heavy. I mean, Donnie Lalonde was a lot bigger than Ray. That was a terrific fight. Ray was one of those guys. A great boxer, a very attractive man, fast as lightning, but when push came to shove, he wasn't afraid to brawl. And neither was Ali. You look at him in the 3 fights with Frazier, well, fights 1 and 3 in particular. The kid who, well, we don't know what's going to happen when he gets hit. What's going to happen is he's going to swallow it and he's going to throw punches of his own. But he was willing to brawl. He didn't look like a brawler. He looked like a model. Just as Ray Leonard did. But they were out there to win. And that's the thing that you don't know. If all you have are fights like Tyson Spinks, Ali Williams, or George Foreman's demolition of Joe Frazier. George Foreman, another guy. Nobody knew just how badly George burned to win. Because he had so many easy fights. You don't know how someone's going to do in deep water. Well, what we found out from George is that he was about as tough as they come. You look at the way that George maintained composure and calm, even as he was losing to Michael Moorer before squaring him up and winning the title back. The way that he fought fire with fire against Evander, he knew that he couldn't beat Evander. He was going to have to knock him out too. Good luck. I mean, my God, Evander was tough as nails. An undersized heavyweight who didn't really look like an undersized heavyweight, but his natural weight, he was a cruiser. And then he became easily a top 10 great heavyweight champion. But November 14, 1966, the most beautiful display of cruelty that boxing has ever seen. And I feel like, it wasn't Larry Merchant or Shirley Povich, but it was one of the boxing writers that I think described it as beautiful cruelty, although they may have been talking about Ali's fight with Ernie Terrell, but we can say that with this. It's poetry in motion, even as a man is getting a whooping put on him. On this day, 1966, the official result, Muhammad Ali defeats Cleveland Williams TKO 3 in the single most impressive, most skillful performance that probably any heavyweight has put forth And we're just lucky that it's in such good quality all of these years later, because there's a lot of great fights. You know, Sugar Ray Robinson, a ton of his career is gone. There are very few fights with prime Sugar Ray Robinson. It's all lost to history. But this history will always exist. Muhammad Ali's forever masterpiece, November 14, 1966. This has been episode 358 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Thursday evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.